Welcome to Season 2, Episode 10 of the Bulls REKAP Podcast. I'm Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can obviously follow me in the Chicago Sun-Times. You can follow me on Twitter, X. Just started Season 2 with Joe Beans Up. If you follow me on Twitter, you know what that is. If not, I sound like a maniac. That's fine. Look, these are some dark days right now. Look, it's around the holidays. It shouldn't be dark days. But if you're a Bulls fan right now, not great. So here's the thing. Here's what I loved what's happened this last week. Not the standings, not the outcome. I love the fact that, of all people, Nikola Vucevic, if anyone hasn't seen it, please go and look for it. It's his walk-off interview with the great Casey Johnson. And it is as pissy as I've ever seen a player, not just a Bulls player, a player after a win, maybe since covering the Bulls and covering the NBA. First of all, Vooch was annoyed by, yes, they won, but this was the Washington game, 1-point win over Washington. Yes, they won, but it was he knew exactly what it was. It was got lucky, and it's the Wizards. And what they were doing and the habits they're playing at are not sustainable, and he knew that. Then to compound it, at times Vooch is the dad. You know, he's got 3 kids. He would rather go home after a game and spend time with his wife and his family than go do anything else. He's the elder statesman. You know, even like he's not the longest tenured Bull. That's Kobe. But Kobe is still young. Kobe is not married. I mean, he's different than a lot of other guys. I would say Lauri Markkanen was like that. Lauri was like an old soul. By the time he came from Finland and was drafted by the Bulls and had played, college basketball and he already had wife, he had kids. So he was a young kid, but he was an old soul. Vooch is an old soul on top of being 35. So he did not love the fact that how they won the game. And secondly, Modest in the background doing this, and Jalen Smith feeling like it was funny time. And Vooch was not into funny time. So there's been a lot of follow-up with that I think is important. The first thing is, was Vooch pissed also because he knows he really loves Chicago, and he knows if this thing goes south, he's probably not coming back to Chicago. He's a free agent after this year. He's got an expiring contract. If Vooch continues to play like he is, which is at a high level offensively, obviously he's not known for his defense, and that's what he's been. But for shooting 40% from three-point range, 3 game winners, 2 of them, final second game winners. One of them ended up, I think 33 seconds left, ended up being the game winner. So he's been clutch. He's been everything you can ask for a 35-year-old guy who plays on the second highest paced team, and he's keeping up with the boys. And so I think he just had enough. And so he knows his fortunes are tied with this group. If this group does not do well, the likelihood of him finishing his career in Chicago or finishing the season in Chicago and possibly talking extension with the Bulls, because that's in play. I wrote this in the Sun-Times. Don't overlook the fact that Vooch is still in play with all the financial flexibility that the Bulls have. You don't find a lot of stretch fives that are doing what he does at his age, still keeping up, like I said, with the pace, and so that's still in play. And I think I've talked to people since that interview, and I think that was some of it, is that he knows we are all tied together as players, especially the 7 or 8 guys that could be elsewhere next year. I mean, you go right down the list: Kobe White, Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, the Vooch, Javon Carter, who's been coming off the bench and balling, and to me adds value to a team just because of his instant offense and 3-point shooting. So, I think eyes are finally on him because he's being showcased. Then don't forget Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry. They have to make decisions on those 2 guys. So you're talking about a lot of flexibility that could open up. And do I think that Arturas Karnisovas, the Bulls executive vice president of basketball operations, is the type that says, you know what? I'm cool. We're going to blow this thing up. We're going to take a step back or what? I don't think that's in his DNA. But he does try to rebuild this thing on the fly or reload this thing on the fly. That's where a guy like Vooch comes into play. You're sending me this guy, or we're packaging Vooch and Kobe for this guy who we think is all-star caliber and could change things. All that stuff is in play. It's just not likely. But what is likely is that Vooch, as a single unit, can be moved. And if this thing goes really bad and they start understanding, look, we're still spinning in mud, we're still a 500 team when the East is right there for the taking. So I think that was some of the pissiness he was showing. And I've talked to other players about it, and Modest is like, I talked to Modest Bucelis about it, and he was like, Vooch is 100% right. No one was offended by that. I've talked to Billy Donovan about that. And I even asked Billy, do you think he is also feeling that if this goes down the drain, he might be the biggest piece of food that's going down first in that garbage disposal? And Billy was great. The one thing people have to understand before the season started, Billy Donovan has a very good pulse of his team and understanding what's going on. He grabbed everybody in the locker room and he said, you are all tied together. All you free agent to be guys, expiring contract guys where there's indecision on your contract, Dalen and Julian Phillips, you are all tied together. This team does well, the likelihood that money will be handed out and they'll try and run this thing back. Would I do that? No, but there's a lot of things I wouldn't do where we wouldn't even be in this situation. Okay. Side note that. And if it goes poorly, you're all tied together to the anchor and you're going to be pulled down. So I think Vooch was, which I really love, is the understanding of even in a win, it's fugazi. You're chasing something that isn't there, a mirage miles in the distance. It's not a watering hole. It's mud. It's nothing. It's dirt. It's sand, and you're going to be putting it in your mouth. And Vooch saw that in Washington, and he had felt it a couple games before in Portland, the fourth quarter of the Portland game, where he had to bail the team out with that three-point shot. So to me, there's that part of it, of why Vooch was so upset. And then I think there's another part of it. I think that Vooch is starting to understand that maybe, just maybe, as a whole, because Kobe's back. He's played in 4 games. Everyone was like, when Kobe gets back, Kobe gets back. He's back. They're 2-2 in his games. Now, are there other pieces that are missing? Zach Collins? Yes. But Jalen Smith in Zach Collins' place has played really well. He started off the first week and a half. It was bad. But since then, and I think so there's that factor. And I think there's also the understanding from Vooch that this roster, this offense is starting. It's, the pace is where it is. It's number 2 right now. I think Miami's number 1. Talk about flipping a switch on an offense from last year. But it's number 2. And you have this help that has arrived in Kobe, who is an all-star caliber player. He's not an all-star yet, but he's an all-star caliber player. And it's still a 2-2 product. And I think that's the other reason he was pissy, is he knows the league has the blueprint now. The Bulls snuck up on people last year. There's no doubt that they snuck up on people last year. But now the blueprint's out. Portland showed it in the fourth quarter. Miami humiliated the Bulls with not only physicality, but showing them, yeah, we can run too, and we can beat you at your own game of pace and then beat you up on the other end. That's all of a sudden a horrible matchup. That better not be a play-in game, because that's murder, she wrote. Then Washington at home, 1-win team. I think they got 2 now. You beat them by 1 point, and you needed to scratch and claw to do that. And then finally the bottom falls out against Zion. I love Zion. Anyone that's watched this podcast knows how I feel about Zion Williamson. He had 29 points. I think he had 1 board. It isn't like he killed them. But Missy and who was the other big that just gave them all kind of fits? I can't remember. They just rebounding and hustle and loose balls and everything that Vooch was pissed about the 2 nights earlier was right there on center stage in New Orleans, a team that is a dead stick, a team that who knows which direction that franchise is going. Derek Queen. Bulls could have had him, but Derek Queen also did a number on him. So I get what Vooch is saying. I get Vooch's frustration. I know there's a lot of critics of Vooch that while Vooch is part of the problem on defense, 100%. But again, I will remind people, Vooch, the trade with Vooch was not done because of his defense. He was brought from Orlando with the idea that we're going to have Vooch, this 2010 guy, this stretch five. We're going to have Vooch, but then we're going to build a backcourt that just causes all kind of havoc defensively. And they did with Lonzo and Alex, and obviously we can all go through that history and talk about what happened. But so I love the fact that Vooch did that, but it also sheds a light on some scary things if you're a Bulls fan. Is it because Vooch knows that he can be a movable piece? And the other thing is it Vooch knows that there's no getting out of this thing? So that's where I think a lot is going to fall on this front office. And again, this has been discussed as well with Cap, with McGuff, the crime dog, whoever I've had on. We've talked about the pressure that's on this front office, not financial pressure, not security pressure. They've got their contract extensions. They've got their money. They aren't going anywhere. They drafted Noah Asenge because know it's a slow play. But to me, the mounting pressure is the small belief that people had in, okay, Arturas knew he made a mistake in 21, 22, that roster, didn't flip it quick enough. We can all beat him up for that, but was now starting to understand modern NBA, flip the script on the offense. They did that. Bring in Isaac Okoro for defense physicality. They did that. It felt like he was starting to understand that, yeah, it's been a shit show for 5 years, but he's starting to climb out of that. This ain't it. I mean, Isaac Okoro could only guard one guy on defense. If other guys, you can go back and watch that game in New Orleans. There was at least 5 instances where people have pulled clips and shown film on it where there was just low effort, zero effort. Modest got his feet caught up and got caught peeking while his guy was streaking in front of him. You would think, hey, you guys practice in high tempo. How do you not then understand when high tempo is being used against you? And New Orleans is not a high tempo team. I think they were 22nd in the league going into that game. So you're talking about a slow down team. So Modest got caught looking back at the ball. His guy sprinted in front of him, easy layup. There were times, even Trey Jones one time, his guy came and just ran through a box out. He just didn't put a body in front of him. Patrick Williams had some lethargic moments in that game. Patrick, it seemed like, was starting to play thought-free and starting to be productive. That's taken a couple steps back. And, Vooch didn't play in that game. He was dealing with the knee, so you can't blame Vooch for that. But they just look small. They look disinterested on defense. They look lethargic on loose balls. And these are all things they need to do. When you're not a good defensive player, you can be a strong-willed player. Those are things you can control. So I think that's what ticked off Vooch. I applaud him for it. But this was the part of the schedule where you're supposed to make up ground. And it's not over. I mean, there's still some Charlotte Friday, a Pacers team on Saturday, fly back to Orlando, I think, on Monday. That won't be fun, but there's still some stuff to do and some key things to do in this stretch where you can say, all right, we feel better about the product. We feel better about what we can do defensively. And if anything, it's gone backwards. So it's been a rough week for Bulls fans. It's been a rougher week for the Bulls, and it's been the roughest week, I think, for Vooch, because he might be seeing the writing on the wall. He might be feeling the pressure of, do I really want to up my family in a place that they love because of these guys that I'm tied to bringing me down into this toilet? So I applaud him for that. Hopefully things change for his sake. But that brings me to big topic number 2. And I mentioned the name, Noah Asenge. You were picked 12th. Derek Queen picked 13. And I'm not going to run from the fact that I had concerns about Derek Queen. Obviously, Atlanta had that spot. New Orleans aggressively jumped up there and gave him their number one pick for next year unprotected, which the way it's kind of falling out or mocking out right now could be a ridiculously high pick in a loaded draft 26 draft class. I mean, another sick draft class coming. Don't tell Arturas he doesn't pay attention to that stuff. So I got to watch Derek Queen, and my concern with him, concern of some of the scouts, is he would not do well at a high-paced team. Wasn't in the greatest shape for the combine. Looked a little like he would get tired. Let me tell you, I was wrong on that. And scouts that believe that were also wrong on that. This is a high IQ dude, and that was the feeling on him. He's a really good passer for a big three. Forget the three-point shot. It's kind of non-existent at this point. And you would think, oh, he's a replica of Zion, big body, can't shoot the three. No, they're two different people. He is way more finesse than Zion. He has some crafty moves. Zion is still just raw force, power, muscle, beat you down. As unique a player as I've seen since the 90s when we had guys like Barkley and Karl Malone when he was in the post, where they just, Oakley, guys like that just muscle and beat you and just humiliate you physically. And Zion is still that when he plays. But Derek Queen, they put Noah Sengay in for a couple minutes. Awful looking 2 minutes. And look, the kid's 18. I don't want to beat up this kid who's 18, who is from another country, who played in the German league. It was a professional league, by the way, who, when he's played in the G League this year, has really played well and shined and done the things they're asking of him. But he's just not ready. He is not even close to ready. That was my initial take on him back in, if you look at some of the tweets from back in Summer League, I just looked at him as just he was 18, but I'm like, he's just an awkward kid, and maybe he's still going to grow. But again, it's such a hard black eye for Arturas Karnisovas to put a pork chop on right now when we're all seeing what Noah looked like in his 2 minutes and what Derek Queen looked like in a full game that he started. And, I mean, he had step-throughs. He had just understanding of when he got mismatched, really demand the ball in the post. Patrick Williams is in year 6, and he'll get a mismatch. He'll get a guard on his hip where it should just be, okay, big bank's about to take little bank, and he doesn't do it. Derek Queen screaming for the ball when he had a Javon Carter or a guard, a Kobe on him, anybody, and doing work out of that spot. His passing, his court vision. And I'm thinking, wow, could you imagine if they would have picked him instead of Noah? And maybe Noah's ceiling is higher in 3 years. And this front office obviously has 3 years. They got extensions. They have 3 years. But Vooch doesn't have 3 years. Kobe might not have 3 years. We don't know if they're going to extend him. What if Kobe's like, I'm averaging 26 a game. I'm a $40 million guy. No, you're not. We're washing our hands with that. So with so much uncertainty, the thing you could have locked up if you were Arturas was, let's really scout this guy. We brought him to Chicago. He was in the building. Billy Donovan met with him and talked to him. Billy Donovan called his coach at Maryland. I talked to Billy about this the other day. Billy is tight with Kevin Willard and talked to him. And there's a lot of things they loved about him. But the final decision was down the road, higher ceiling for Noah. This is not an organization that could gamble down the road. You know who can? OKC could draft a guy and say, down the road, we'll sit on him for a couple of years. The Miami Heat could draft a guy and say, down the road, we'll let him embrace Heat culture and see what that's like. Down the road is when we could unleash him. The Bulls were not in position to say, down the road. He could be a great defender. Could be teamed up with Modest. And again, I was on the Derek Queen can't run with the Bulls. Probably not a smart choice. It's proved me wrong. But I'm not hired to be the GM. I'm the sports writer. There's a GM and there's a VP of executive basketball operations that travel around and go to these games and scout and go to Hawaii and go to Duke and go to all these different schools and scout these guys and are paid to scout these guys that should have said, yeah, that translates. What Derek Queen does translates. Now, would he have been playing like he is if he had to play at a high pace and he has Vucevic in front of him and Modest in front of him and Okoro in front of him, so there's not really a true starting front court? Maybe not. Maybe not. But damn, think about it. Modest, Derek Queen, financial flexibility. Could have had something. Josh Giddey, Mr. Triple-Double, the Aussie, could have had something. So those are the two biggest things to take away from this week if you're a Bulls fan, and none of it is good. Sorry, it's the holidays. I know a lot of you preparing turkey and getting ready for your feast. Feast on some of that trash, because this has not been good basketball the last week. And even bigger picture, organizationally, not the greatest look for Arturas Karnisovas, who was already on thin ice, and the rest of that front office. So let's get to the rant. Cowley Island. I believed in you. I'm not going to lie. I bought into the hype. 5-1, running their asses off out of the gate. Teams just look disinterested in trying to run with them. Yeah, I knew there would be a course correction. I knew film would come out and that teams would say, yeah, maybe if we try two bigs against them, it could slow them down. Maybe if we're a little more physical against them, it could slow them down. But I figured with that pace and the three-point shooting and with the depth of what was coming and what was already there, I believe in you, Bulls. I picked them sixth, so I believed in them a certain amount before the season started. But then I was starting to think, 4? Home court advantage, first round of the playoffs? 5? Have to go on the road against a number 4 team that they could possibly beat? I never, ever, ever thought that Portland would be the team that would say, blueprint, fourth quarter, look at Klingon, look at our bigs beating this team's ass, coming back from 23, 25, whatever it was. Here's the blueprint, and you guys can all follow it. And teams have all followed it. Billy said it the other day. Teams are not putting them, as Billy put it, his quote to me was, teams are putting us on Front Street and saying, now what? So it's all out there on film. And Billy's watching the film and seeing it. The teams are playing them very similarly with lineups and matchups and just going big and physical and saying, what are you going to do about it? I know a lot about Chicago. I've been here for 27 years, 28 years, whatever it is now. And I know that Chicago people, you give them the choice between a number 3 seed or number 4 seed that you know doesn't have NBA finals aspirations and will probably be 1, maybe 2 rounds done, and they're finesse and soft, or you give them a 5 or 6 seed who will probably go out in the first round because they don't have the skill, but they bust their ass, they're blue collar, they're physical, they have an edge to them, and their identity is not finesse. Chicago people would rather take that. I would hope, from what I know about this city. Neither team's going anywhere, but at least you could relate to one team and say, blue bucket or blue pail, blue collar, bring a bucket to lunch type of team, or pretty boy, finesse, doesn't like physicality. And right now it's moving towards that direction. So we're early. We're only, at the end of November, it could change, but I just don't know if they have the horses. And I believed in you. You got me. You fish hooked me like that. You had me. And I was like, maybe my number 6 was too low for me. Cowley Island is disgusted right now. So, all right, let's get to the list. It's Thanksgiving time. I'm going to end it on a positive note because everyone knows I'm Mr. Positive. 5 things Bulls fans can be thankful for right now. We'll go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, which you could be the most thankful for. You might not like it, but here we go. Number 5, Vooch. How could you not be thankful of the Vooch right now? He has won 3 games for the fan base and the organization. He is shooting 40% over 3. He is doing whatever it takes to play make. He's doing whatever it takes to win games. And and he's speaking his mind. Gotta love the Vooch right now. Probably could be higher, but we'll keep him at 5. 4, the return of Kobe. Don't love the defense all the time, but he's coming off the shelf. We're gonna give him an excuse, a built-in excuse. I love the fact of his offense. His just didn't really miss a beat offensively. Defense, he's probably got to get some things back, get his legs underneath him. He's only started 2 of the 4 games. The minutes restrictions are starting to come off. That's always a good thing. So Kobe, can he push to be an all-star? Or will he and Giddey kind of steal votes from each other? And number 3, I know he hasn't been consistent, and I know people would like to see more from him, and I know there's been some cringe moments, but Modest Buzelis, and I'm going to tell you why he's number 3, because I don't think I've seen Billy coach one player as hard, pull him out of lineups, give him the riot act, and this kid freaking loves it. Doesn't go into his shell. I mean, say what you want. Patrick Williams goes into his shell, and Billy had to be very careful how he handled him. Still does. Modest, screw it. Coach me hard. That's how I want to be coached. Love guys like that. Wants to still chase greatness. Is pissed after a loss or a bad performance, but the next day he's back to just kind of goofy. Let's just go, Modest. So he's number 3. Number 2. This is the one the Bulls fans aren't going to like. Billy Donovan. Be thankful for Billy Donovan. I know you think you're some great landing place for coaches. You're not. That's been discussed many times on this podcast. I love the fact how he's calling guys out. I love the fact how he's holding veterans accountable. He always didn't do that. It was always, I think DeMar and Zach got away with some stuff they probably didn't get away with. Shouldn't have get away with. I think he's coaching his ass off. He's coaching hard. I love some of the plays he's drawn up to win games and get final shots off. I think he's trying to fix the defense. Wants to get back to I think they were top 5 defense 3 years ago. So obviously, and that's with Kobe and Vooch. Everyone else is new, but with some same players in the game. I think Billy's done a really good job with what he has. And people like to criticize Billy and stuff. Billy has not had one elite guy besides DeMar DeRozan. And you could honestly say DeMar DeRozan's game is going that of the dinosaur when Billy had him, and he still made the most he could out of that. And DeMar played his best basketball. So, I mean, that's the thing. Josh Giddey, his best basketball is right now under Billy Donovan. You could say, well, Oklahoma City was loaded, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Vooch, arguably, is playing some of his best basketball. He might not have the numbers he had in Orlando, but if he has Vooch, as far as being an all-around basketball player, it's been under Billy Donovan. So, Kevin Huerter, whose career was, he's Mr. Plus, he's Mr. Plus minus, and he's on the plus side of plus. Trey Jones, I mean, so Billy's making guys better. Sorry. Are guys going to fall through Patrick Williams? Has he gotten better? I don't know. But he didn't come from elsewhere, so I don't know if he was elsewhere. Lauri Markkanen needed a change of scenery. And then he goes to Cleveland, and he still needed to hit rock bottom in Cleveland before he finally said, hey, I'm an adult. I'm a grown-up. I'm going to be a grown-up basketball. So, number 2, Billy Donovan. We can argue, debate that one, but you'd be wrong. Number 1, here's the number 1 thing you have. It's not the front office, because they are not number 1, is fiscal flexibility. And not that contracts are coming off. It's just contracts are movable. So, every day, I still get on my hands and knees and say, will this front office recognize A.J. DeBonsa, Boozer's son, the good son? They're twins, but I think it's Cameron is the one that's playing well. Are they recognizing this draft class and the dudes in this draft class and saying, we've got these contracts, let's try and move some pieces, get back a player that we can also get rid of, but a draft pick. Let's try and maximize. They won't, but they have the flexibility. So I get on my hands and knees and say, will they understand that they still have not found a dude, but there's dudes out there, and they're playing Monday nights on ESPN and Wednesday nights on Saturday afternoons. They're in college basketball. Please go get one. So That's it. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, your family, friends. Till next week, I got next.